Hi guys, welcome back to Level Up Rugby. I just ran a 4:45 Bronco. That's a minute off my last time, and this is how I did it. Roll those clips. Okay guys, I've just had a very special delivery and I think I might know what it is. Let's go do an unboxing. Wow, what a YouTuber. Okay guys, I'm gonna take that off straight away. Just so all the fans just don't start flooding the new Level Up HQ. I'm sure we can arrange a fan meetup at some point, but my address is staying private for now. Got a knife to open this bad boy up. Here's my current letter opening knife. It's a lovely steak knife. I enjoyed a steak last night. But let's see what is hidden within. Oh ho ho! All right then, so a lot more is in here than I anticipated. First and foremost, what I was expecting was this. Bash. Try time, essentially pre-workout specifically for rugby from Game Day Nutrition. So first and foremost, shout out Game Day Nutrition. They were fueling me throughout the entirety of last season. This isn't a sponsorship deal, by the way. I just love this product. So you may be wondering, how can a pre-workout be specific for a sport, let alone rugby? Well, what I love about the product is that it gives you energy without creating the red mist that causes confusion and distraction in games. That's how I'd summarize it. Tom summarizes it himself a lot better. The Game Day guys really explain the product much better than I can, but I'm an advocate for it. I love it because it gives me that buzz that I want before a game, but as a kicker and as a decision maker in those games, I don't want to be foggy and red misty and all over the place and confused. What I want is a high stimulant without too much jitter, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain. Again, like I said, they explain it a lot better themselves, but it's a source of energy that I now just can't really go without. I even use it at the gym before sessions. Try not to use it too much because I try and keep a low level of tolerance, so I get the biggest effect from it. If I just used it every day, then I just build up a tolerance to it and I would not really feel the full effect. So I use it minimally, but when I do, it has a great effect. Again, this is not a sponsored video. I just love this product and I want to give you guys the most insight into what I use as a player myself. And this is now on that list, a new thing. However, they've also chucked in a load more goodies for me in here, which I have no idea about. So here is the Game Day business card. You can have a look at that. That is all their socials, that's all their contact information. Okay, so this is just a smaller package of this. I think this must be like a shot of the full tub. So just like a one-use thing. Yeah, one serving, 48 grams. Yeah, so it's like a quick use version. I'll be using that still. Got a lovely Game Day bit of merch. Yes, please. I love a bit of merch. Of course, this will only be used for Game Day supplements. Definitely not university boozing. We've got a little funnel here to make sure that we are getting the right measurements in, not wasting any of this absolutely delightful elixir. I've got another one of those, and oh, I don't know what exactly this is. It's a bag, that goes without saying. I suppose it's for the tub, maybe? Or I could stick some balls in there, some rugby balls. Either way, that's pretty cool, that's pretty unique. I've never seen anything like that before. Wow. Cheers guys, thanks so much to Game Day Nutrition, as stated on the tub. This is the Try Time product. They have loads of other merch now as well, it turns out, so that's great. Yeah, cheers guys, thank you so much to Game Day Nutrition for keeping me alive throughout the season. I'll leave all the links for those guys down below in the description. So if you are looking to level up your nutrition on Game Day, then look no further than Game Day. You see loads of different brands out there for supplements and blah, 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 but nothing specifically for rugby. And these are the guys I've been using for the last season now, and I love the products. So go check them out, and I'll leave the links down below in the description. Hello, and welcome to the brand new Level Up Rugby studio. Let's get a round of applause for that. Look at this state-of-the-art setup I have here. All my books on the shelf, the lovely Level Up branding on the screen. Feeling awfully professional right now. I'm just living my vlogging best life, essentially. So I hope you guys enjoy the new professional setup. And this is where I'm going to do a lot of my videos from moving forward. So similarly to week 3, where I had a little less going on and I then spoke about who I am as a person, this week, again, with a little less going on other than just the general fitness sessions that I won't bore you with, I'm instead going to bore you with shin splint recovery methods and rehab strategies. Now, shin splints is something that I've battled against for a few years now. It is the burden of my existence. It probably shows how much of a sheltered life I've lived, but either way, it is a source of misery, pain, and frustration for me, because it's similar to a concussion in that sense, where it's an injury that you struggle to see. You don't look any different, you haven't got a cast on, you haven't got a brace on your knee, you can't strap it really, but it's either way very, very influential on how you play the game. Generally, just running and even walking about at times was excruciatingly painful, to the point where I couldn't train properly, and that's what happened when I first got shin splints. It came as a result of me having the entirety of COVID off. I thought that this is most likely the first and last chance I'm going to get until I finish playing to completely rest my body. So I took that chance and then turned up to Loughborough pre-season, and my body fell apart. The workload that we got through, not just in terms of intensity, but volume, was unlike anything I'd ever done before, and my body, after all that rest, fell apart. I did not prepare well enough, and that is part of the reason for this series, is to keep myself accountable, as I mentioned in vlog 3. So, my body fell apart and shin splints came into my life for the very first time, and it was so frustrating. Like, this seriously was like a bit miserable for me, because I look fine, but I can't move in the way that my body wanted to. I'd see opportunities in front of me that a younger me would have just taken instantly, and I couldn't move my body into that space. Whether that's because I was unconsciously holding myself back because of the pain, or just physically couldn't move. It was a very frustrating time, and it just caused me a lot of misery moving forward from that. The primary reason I think for it, and we'll come on to in the solutions for overcoming shin splints, is artificial grass pitches. I have no quarrel with artificial grass pitches. I think they're a blessing for 365 rugby, because in the depths of the bleak midwinter, we can still train in a comfortable environment, which isn't a mud-filled, horrible pitch. We can still train as we want to without getting dirty and muddy, which is important for us backs, of course. However, with the increased number of artificial grass pitches in the UK, is coming an increase in niggly injuries around the knees, the ankles, the hips, essentially the joints that you use to turn, accelerate, decelerate, which come under increased stress due to the increased bite of the surface with your boots. Now, I'll come on to that with the right boots to pick for artificial grass pitches in the solutions, but either way, back when I first started developing shin splints, I didn't have the right footwear, and it was resulting in, for me, who already had a predisposition for shin splints, it caused the injury to flare up and led to a lot of misery for me, as I couldn't participate in rugby essentially because I couldn't move. And it was embarrassing to be at a stage where I'd worked towards for a long time and was trying to compete at, and couldn't even get on the pitch really. And whenever I did, and I tried to push through the pain, I just didn't perform anywhere near my potential, and it was demoralizing, it was frustrating, it was saddening, like it was just a load of negative feelings, which is why I came on this journey of shin splint recovery. So what I'm going to do for the shin splint squad out there is list off my top 8 remedies for shin splints. I'm going to put them in chronological order of what I think is the least to the most effective for me personally. This is not professional medical advice. These are just remedies that I've used to relieve myself of pain and cope with shin splints. I don't think it's really anything you ever truly overcome, but it's something that you can help manage with these remedies. So, I'm going to start off with number 8, and that is, bear with me, these two bad boys. What I have first and foremost is calcium and magnesium with a little bit of vitamin D in a tablet supplement. And this is magnesium oil. This is what I call my mum's herbal remedies, because she looked into shin splints for me and did a lot of research to find that these are often deficient supplementation areas for people who suffer with shin splints. So I'll have one of these today just to help out with the calcium in my bones and whatever, and then I'll have some magnesium oil. All I'll do is spray it on, rub it in, standard stuff. Again, not sponsored, but this is just from the local store, and it supposedly relieves pain. And in fairness, ever since I've used these in combination with all my other remedies, my shin splints have been somewhat relieved. Is it causation? Is it correlation? That's for the science nerds to decide. It did happen at the same time though, so I'm sure it all adds up. These small things really do come into the equation later on. So that is tip number 8. Mum's herbal remedies. Shin splint tip number 7 then came from my physio, the same guy that diagnosed me with medial tibial stress syndrome. What he essentially said to me was that the previous physios that I'd had were treating me for shin splints. Understandably, I had pain in my shins, but through further examination, he realized that I didn't have shin splints, I had medial tibial stress syndrome. The pain was just highlighted in my shins as a result of other causes. The physios previously were treating the effect, which was pain in my shins, so I was doing a lot of lower body, lower leg strengthening exercises, so calf raises, hip raises, which we'll come on to, which are still effective. But if I really wanted to get to the bottom of the issue, I had to treat the causes of the issues. And those, first and foremost, were my hips. Now at school at Beach and Cliff, we had a lot of S&C help, but I neglected a lot of it. I'm very disappointed to say that I focused on majority-wise compound lifts and strength and hypertrophy exercises. I wanted to get strong, I wanted to get big, and I neglected all of the niggly things. So that resulted in me having relatively strong major muscle groups, but the connective tissues that were tying everything else together were very weak. So as I became stronger and my connective tissues didn't strengthen with it, essentially I was becoming more powerful and unable to control it with the other parts of my body. So first and foremost, don't let that happen in the first place. Do your S&C programs as the S&C professionals tell you to do so, because it can resolve issues before they even occur. However, I didn't do those, so essentially what happened was I had strong quads, hammies, calves, glutes, but very weak hips and abductors. So because of that, my hips were weak, so that when I stand up, my hips fall inwards like this, and it puts a lot of pressure down through the inside of my legs. But yeah, my hips stand like this, and what I need to stand like is this. I need to pull my hips forwards and stand tall. So rather than being here, I should be here. Now, that's all right to do mentally, cognitively, by yourself whenever you're walking around. But when you're on the rugby pitch and you not only have thousands of other things to think about, but you're also fatigued, that little bit there adds up and adds up and adds up until you're having so much pain going down the inside of your shins that it's unbearable to run. So that is tip number 7. Strengthen your hips and the connective tissues around your body in total, so that you have the means to maneuver your body in the major muscle groups most effectively and in an injury-free way. Tip number 6 is running technique. Now I learned this over COVID in the second lockdown after my body fallen apart, where I took up running to try and strengthen my lower body, because I figured that would be a way of improving the pain relief of my calves and my shins by just practicing the movement. Now what I learned from runners who commonly suffer with shin splints is that a lot of the time it comes from heel striking. Now heel striking, as it says, is where your heel comes into contact first and then you roll onto your forefoot when running. Now this is commonly what happens when you walk, but it shouldn't happen when you run, because the issue is when you heel strike first, you decelerate because your heel comes into contact with the ground, and then re-accelerate. Of course, first and foremost, that's inefficient, but it also sends shock waves up your lower body that cause shin splints. So the change that you have to make is changing your running gait. I called it having an increased cadence. So I'd take shorter steps to begin with that focused on stepping underneath my body rather than out in front. So rather than overstriding, I'd contact the ground underneath my body and extend my stride behind my body rather than out in front. That was the way I increased my stride length or maintained my stride length without overstriding and heel striking. So tip number 6 is stop heel striking. Run on your forefoot as you're designed to do. And you do that through changing the point of contact when you're running. So run and land underneath your torso, essentially. Pretty self-explanatory. Breaking into the top 5 tips for shin splints. Number 5 is have the right footwear. That's not just whilst you're running out on tarmac roads, which are quite aggressive and hard hitting whenever you run, but also, and more importantly, having the right footwear for artificial grass pitches, which I alluded to earlier. Now, there are specially designed AG boots that you can buy on the Level Rugby website, for example. And essentially, they have more conical shaped studs, which essentially means they're more circular and wider, to have a less aggressive bite into the already aggressive turf of an artificial grass pitch. Now what that means is whenever you plant, you're not getting the same kind of bite as a soft ground pitch, which already gives you a bit of room to maneuver as your studs tear the grass away. It doesn't happen on an artificial grass pitch. You are there and you stay there. So having a bit more slide like you do on a soft ground pitch is important, and artificial grass boots provide you with that, with their slightly more conical shaped studs. So have the right footwear for the right surface, have the right tools for the job, and set yourself up for success. It may take a bit more investment, but for me that was so worth it for the ability to actually play rugby. Simple as that. So tip number 5, have the appropriate footwear, whether it's running on the road in a proper running shoe and cushioned running shoe so you can actually soften the impact on the ground, but also for an artificial grass pitch so you're able to turn less aggressively, still effectively for a performance enhancing benefit, but less aggressively for a injury reduction benefit. Again, it's not required for people who don't have shin splints, because people clearly play in soft ground boots on artificial grass pitches and are okay. But for me, who suffers with it, it's really worth the investment. The 4th best tip recommended to me for overcoming shin splints was recommended by an orthotics specialist. Now, the physio who diagnosed me with medial tibial stress syndrome recommended, having looked at my running gait, that I speak to an orthotics specialist. Now, orthotics, to my knowledge of the word, is all to do with your feet. Now, what the physio recognized is that simply, I have flat feet, and that, as my feet roll inwards, puts a lot of stress up the medial side of my tibia, especially combined with artificial grass pitches, soft ground rugby boots on artificial grass pitches, incorrect running technique, none of these guys in my arsenal. It all adds up, and having flat feet is just the catalyst to set everything on fire. So because my feet are flat, I then had my feet casted and molded so that I was provided with orthotics, which I have in my shoes on day-to-day life and in my boots for rugby. They correct the posture of my foot artificially. They force my foot to stand correctly and have a bridge in my arch, as you're designed to have as a human being. So because I didn't have that, I was causing a lot of pain going up the inside of my shins. The insole forces my foot into the right posture so that that stress isn't going down the inside of my shin, it's being spread across my entire lower leg as a normal person would have for themselves. Again, it's very specific for me and my medial tibial stress syndrome, which is not shin splints technically. As we said earlier, shin splints and the pain down my shins was the effect, but it was my weak hips and my flat feet which really was incorrect with my body composition, which resulted in my shin splints. And that is specific for me and my body composition, like I said, and it might not be the case for you, but if you have shin splints, look into it. It might be the cause and this might help. However, that is a very artificial solution to the problem. It's essentially buying your way to freedom rather than earning it. It's building scaffolding around your lower leg to provide you with support rather than just strengthening your lower leg, which is my third top tip for overcoming shin splints, is strengthen your lower leg. So there's two primary muscle groups to my knowledge in the lower leg. There is the calf on the back and there is the tibialis on the front. There's two ways to work the calf really. There's a standing calf raise, but I personally prefer the seated calf raise. I just felt like I put my foot in a better position to really overload the right areas and get the right stretches, for me, personally speaking. So there's two ways I would train my calf. There would be the really high intensity, high weight, low rep range strengthening exercises, where essentially I'd stack as much weight as I could possibly bear onto the calf raise machine and just explode up, hold for as long as I could, slowly on the eccentric go down, rest at the bottom, explode up, do the same again for most likely 5 reps. That was one way of doing it. The second way, which gets even more blood pumping around the body, is doing single leg high volume. So that works on the asymmetry between each calf as you're working each calf individually rather than the combined strength, which might have a few compensations here and there for one leg over the other. But doing one single leg at a time really works out, and doing that with high volume because you can't really hit the heavy load with just one leg. So instead we'll focus on volume and getting as much blood around the muscle as possible. So I do between 15 to 30 reps of single leg calf raises. Not too strict with form this time, just really bouncing and being as explosive as I can to get at the bottom of that like I would do when I'm sprinting. Just again, getting blood into the muscle and strengthening that area. So that's the calf on the back. And secondly, and arguably most importantly, is the front, the tibialis, which often gets neglected in many S&C programs because it's such a small muscle group that only really is responsible for lifting your forefoot off the ground when your feet are flat. It's a small movement, but for those shin splint sufferers can cause or can result in a lot of relief, as having a strong tibialis just essentially strengthens your lower legs, and that is only going to be good for the area of pain. So don't neglect your calves when you're in the gym. Don't neglect your tibialis, even more importantly, because having strong lower legs is fundamental in terms of the long-term solution of this. Rather than just buying the insoles and buying your way to freedom, you should probably look to earn it alongside that as well, because just having strong lower legs not only is performance enhancing, but also injury preventing in this case. So again, similarly to my hips, don't neglect the niggly things. Remember, train your lower legs as well. They're just as important in terms of longevity and preventing injury as quads, hammies and glutes are in terms of high performance. It's all well and good being a racehorse, but if you've got a broken ankle, you're not going to run. You know what I'm saying? Number 2 then, the second most effective strategy in overcoming shin splints is lose some weight. Now, personally speaking, I was always on the smaller side, on the skinnier side growing up when playing rugby, and I thought, you know what, I need to put some size on if I'm going to compete with these big lads, which was true, but to a certain extent. As I've alluded to in previous vlogs and gym sessions, I became a bit of a bodybuilder rather than a rugby player. I wasn't so much athletic, I was more just aesthetic, looking for the big major muscle groups again and neglecting the niggly things. But also, as a result of that, I'd bulk quite heavily and put on a lot of weight so I could then move more weight and get stronger. But I never really took that weight off, especially during the season. I was always eating high volumes of food to maintain my weight because I thought that would make me a better player. But similarly to working on the major muscle groups and neglecting the niggly things, it's all well and good being big, but if you can't move around, what's the point? What's the point in having this size if you can't actually get on the pitch and play because you are injured half the time? So lose some weight is what I told myself. Again, it's my remedy list. This is what works for me. I realized that especially on artificial grass pitches, especially with flat feet, weak hips, the wrong boots, weak lower body areas, all of those things combined with then an additional 10 or 15 kilos on my body resulted in even more stress when planting into the ground and turning, and especially when decelerating, putting all that pressure on my lower body as I had my knees over my toes when I was decelerating. It's just a recipe for disaster, essentially. All these things add up and combine to the worst possible outcome, which was me never really being able to play. And even when I was playing at a very limited version of my true potential, I believe, which was frustrating and demoralizing, as I alluded to at the very start of the video. So what I've done is I bulked up again over the summer, over this off period, up to 105 kilos, which is pretty heavy, unnecessarily heavy, arguably. And I'm happy about that because all my lifts went up. I got a lot stronger physically, but I actually realized, you know what, this is not helping my rugby in the long term. I may be getting stronger, but it's no use to me when I'm not on the pitch. So to get on the pitch, I knew I needed to lose weight. And I can't lie to you, it's been revelational to me. It's been incredible because I put on an extra 10 kilos and I've lost that 10 kilos and I'm losing an extra 5 kilos now. I'm trying to aim for 90 kilograms by the end of pre-season. And I feel free. It is an incredible feeling to go back to how I used to feel when I was younger and could move around freely and take space and beat people with footwork. I'm still stiff as anything because I haven't practiced it in so long because I have been so weak in my lower body. But now I actually have the opportunity, the potential to take space, feel fast on the pitch, rather than just being an Andy Good, stationary, kicking, playmaking, role distributing 10. I now actually have freedom to move around, and it's great. And it's all because I've lost weight, because I'm putting less pressure through each step whenever I'm turning, and all those things adding up just made my life a lot worse because I was not overweight, but just not the right kind of condition to play rugby. So that's tip number 2. Final tip for overcoming shin splints is, again, strengthening your feet specifically. And I make it as an extra point because it's extra important. We've already covered strengthening your lower leg, but I'm talking specifically about the dogs, your feet, especially the arch of your foot. So what I do to strengthen this area is I walk around on tiptoes with weights, I bounce around on tiptoes. I do a lot of sled pulls, reverse sled pulls, where I'm on my forefoot the whole time. I run up hills, which puts me in that forefoot position to strengthen it. Anything I can do to strengthen my foot specifically, all those little niggly muscles in between your toes, around the arch of your foot, even more importantly, because as I said before, it's all well and good artificially buying scaffolding to support your foot, but there's no better remedy than actually building the house that stands up for itself, which is the foot and the arch of it. So if I can strengthen that specifically, I can then walk around, ideally without the insoles. I still have the insoles in there for when I get fatigued and my feet start to roll in. But to begin with, I have stronger feet, stronger arches to support myself moving around the pitch. And that is my best tip, is strengthen your feet. It's neglected entirely because people don't usually suffer with these problems, but apparently my feet are weak, and strengthening them has done me the world of good in relieving my pain. So yes, those are my top 8 tips for overcoming shin splints. I went into way more detail than you probably needed, but that is the detail we go into here at Level Up. That is the brand. We're all about detail here, so I'm going to give you the reasons why behind everything too. So hopefully you didn't fall asleep halfway through that. If you don't have shin splints, then I hope you've skipped through this because it's not probably a problem of yours, although some of these remedies are important for people to prevent shin splints rather than just overcoming them when you have them. It's more about prevention than reaction, if that makes sense. You're being proactive rather than reactive. But yeah, I hope that helped. If you do have shin splints, then drop a comment down below and say, thanks Dr. OJ, really helped me out there. I didn't know what to do without you. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. It's really helped me to list these things and tick them off each day as I do them, and resulted in me managing my shin splints a lot better than having just to deal with the pain. There is a solution out there. Please believe me, if you have shin splints, there's a way of overcoming them, which isn't just icing them. Notice how I didn't put that on the list, because that is a strategy to deal with the pain. It is reactive. We want to be proactive in our strategy to overcoming shin splints. So build the house, don't just buy the scaffolding. You know, strengthen your body, but combine it with that scaffolding so you can hold yourself up and perform on pitch whenever you need to. I hope you enjoyed. I'll stop rambling now. Let's get on with the vlog. Good morning, team. I hope you are unbelievably well. I need inspiration. I want you to comment down below your least favorite S&C fitness test session, whatever. Today, I am running a broken Bronco. I'm back at the mighty Loughborough. Throwback to me absolutely hanging here when I did my first Bronco of the year. And essentially to get the pacing a little bit better, to work on a little bit more of a longer term fitness. Don't know the science behind that. I'm going to run a broken Bronco, which essentially means you run a Bronco rep at the pace you want to set, stop for a minute, run another rep. So we're going to be running minute reps, minutes off. That's the plan. Let's get into it. I just ran a 4:45 Bronco. That's a minute off my last time, and this is how I did it. I hope you all enjoyed my first ever bit of clickbait. I don't know how I feel about it, morally speaking, but we'll see how the engagement goes on the analytics after this episode goes out. So how did I take a minute off my Bronco time? Well, it's pretty simple. I took a minute rest between each rep. It's called a broken Bronco, if you haven't already heard of it. It's essentially just to practice the pacing and timing of each rep so you secure the final time in the test that you want. It's also just bloody good fitness, because I did a double Bronco essentially. I did 1 rep in 55 seconds, 1 minute rest. I did that 5 times, took a 3-minute rest, and then did that again. The first 3 reps of each set were in 55 seconds. The last 2 were a little bit more of a push at 1 minute. So if I do that in the proper Bronco test without any rest, then I'm on for a 4:45 Bronco. God knows how I'm gonna do that without rest, because that was hard work. Realistically, I ran my last Bronco at about 5 minutes 40. So again, I'm aiming just to take a large chunk out of that, which I think if I ran a proper Bronco, I would have done today. So clearly the fitness is going in the right direction. Although we're not at a 4:45 Bronco yet, the target is 4:50. So if I can manage that at the weight I'm currently sat at especially, it's gonna be a happy day for me. The shins are hurting a little bit, but all part of the progress. I am now back in Loughborough, so doing my S&C rehab work in Power Base, one of the best gyms probably in the UK. I'll give you a tour around that if you want to see it. And yeah, blowing. Running done, skills done. Happy days. Carl, how was it, mate?
Not too bad. Bit of skills, getting back into it's quite nice.
Getting the fingers firing with a bit of passing, getting the nudges in. Happy days on some scran.